The night Veda came back from her weekend away, her key still slid into my front door. It just would not turn. She called me cruel. My family called me dramatic. But nobody wanted to talk about the night she laughed in my kitchen and told me, "Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with." So I believed her. And by the time my neighbor stepped onto her porch, Veda finally learned what those words really cost. Looking back, the lock was never the cruel part. The cruel part was standing in my own kitchen, holding my father's old spoon, while people laughed at me for wanting basic respect. A home stops feeling safe when your kindness becomes someone else's spare key. Before we begin, tell me where you're listening from tonight. By Sunday night, Veda would be standing on my porch with a suitcase in one hand and a key that still fit the lock but would not turn. She would call me cruel. She would call me controlling. She would tell people I had thrown her away like she meant nothing. But the truth was simpler than that. She did not lose access to my house in one night. She lost it one laugh at a time. 2 years earlier, I stood in front of that little ranch house near Lidditz with a brass key pressed into my palm. It was not fancy. The gutters needed cleaning, the porch boards had a soft spot near the steps, and the kitchen cabinets looked like they had survived 3 different decades without agreeing on one style. But it was mine. At 39, that word still felt strange in my mouth. Mine, not borrowed, not shared because someone else needed it more, not something I had to apologize for wanting. My father, Orson Merrick, helped me fix the porch that first summer. He was already moving slower then, but he still showed up with his toolbox and that old stubborn smile of his. "Good tools don't need to be pretty," he told me, holding up a scarred wooden spoon he had used for chili, paint stirring, and once for tapping a loose window frame back into place. "They just need to keep showing up." When he passed, I kept 3 things close: his toolbox, his recliner, and that ugly spoon with the burn mark on the handle. Being the youngest son in the Merrick family meant showing up was never optional. My mother, Althea, called me sweet when she needed help. My brother Corwin called me available when his schedule got tight. My sister Blythe said I was lucky because I did not have a wife or kids pulling me in different directions. That was the polite version. The real version was this: everyone knew I would say yes before they had to ask twice. The same afternoon, I sent Mom a picture of me standing in front of the house. Smiling like a man who had finally made it to shore, she called me. "Oh, honey, I'm proud of you," she said. Then, before the warmth had time to settle, she added, "Corwin needs a little space for some boxes. Just a few weeks. You have that garage now." I looked at the empty garage through the side door. I had imagined Dad's tools on one wall, a workbench under the window, maybe even my car inside when winter came. Still, I said, "Sure, a few weeks is fine." Corwin arrived the next Saturday with a borrowed trailer and no clear plan to come back for any of it. Boxes of Christmas decorations, a broken lawn spreader, 2 cracked dining chairs, a sagging sofa wrapped in plastic. Things that had been too useless to keep in his own house, but apparently too important to throw away. When I asked how long he needed the space, he laughed and slapped my shoulder. "Relax, little brother. It's not like you have a family filling the place." He said it like a joke. I smiled like it was one. That night, my car stayed in the driveway while Corwin's leftovers took the dry space I had worked for. Dad's toolbox ended up behind a stack labeled MISC. His recliner sat under a sheet near the back wall. I told myself, family helps family. Funny how that sentence can sound noble when you say it out loud and still feel like a weight in your chest. Veda Sloan came into the house slowly, the way rain gets into a basement. At first it was a weekend bag, then a few dresses in the closet. Then her lease had trouble. Her roommate was acting impossible, and she asked if she could stay 6 weeks, maybe 8. I wanted to believe that meant we were building something. Veda had taste, I will give her that. She could make a room look warm with 3 pillows and a thrift store lamp. She changed the curtains, moved the side table, replaced the framed photo of Dad and me on the porch with a pale print of wild grass. "It opens the room up," she said. Then Dad's recliner went to the garage. "It doesn't match the cleaner look," she told me, touching my arm like she was doing me a kindness. I almost objected. I should have. But I could already hear my mother's voice in my head. "Don't be difficult, Judd. She's trying." A week later, Veda hung a small wooden plaque by the hallway. "Judd and Veda, our home." I stared at it longer than I should have. Our looked good when guests walked in. Our looked good in pictures. Our looked good in the short home videos Veda posted online. "I rescued this place from divorced uncle energy," she said in one clip, laughing as she panned across my living room. People commented with hearts. "You made it beautiful. Such a cozy home. He's lucky to have you." She showed me the comments like they were compliments for both of us. Then the heater went out in late November. The repair bill came to more than I wanted to spend that month. I mentioned splitting it, gently, because Veda had been calling the place our little home for months. She looked at me like I had asked her to pay my taxes. "It's your house, Judd. I'm not paying for repairs." No yelling, no slam door, just one clean sentence that told the truth better than any argument could. It was our home when it gave her comfort, photos, and a story to tell. It was my house when responsibility showed up. I paid the bill. That evening, I stood in the garage with the receipt in my hand. Corwin's boxes leaned against the wall. Veda's old decor sat in a pile near Dad's recliner. Through the doorway, I could see that plaque hanging straight and proud in the hall. "Judd and Veda, our home." By then, I should have known the word "our" did not mean what I thought it meant. That Sunday dinner was the night my family proved Veda had not taken over my house by force. They had handed it to her politely, one compliment at a time. The following Sunday looked harmless from the outside. That was the strange part. If you had walked past my house that evening, you would have seen porch lights warming up, my mother's Buick in the driveway, Corwin's truck parked half over the grass like usual, and Blythe's little crossover tucked neatly behind him. You might have smelled pot roast through the screen door and thought, now that's a family doing what families are supposed to do. Inside, it felt different. Veda moved through my kitchen like she had been elected to run the place. She checked the oven, adjusted the candles, straightened a table runner I had never bought, and told me twice which serving spoon looked better with the dish Mom had brought. I let it go. That was my talent back then, letting things go before anyone had to ask. My mother, Althea, came in carrying a covered casserole and kissed my cheek. "Oh, Judd, look at this place," she said, glancing around the living room. "Veda, honey, you've done wonders. It finally feels like a family home." Finally. She did not say it to hurt me. I knew that. But some words do not need bad intentions to leave a mark. I had bought that house. I paid the mortgage. I had patched the porch with Dad. I had spent weekends painting trim and learning which pipes rattled when the temperature dropped. But apparently it had only become a home once Veda changed the curtains and moved my father's picture off the sideboard. Corwin grabbed a dinner roll before anyone sat down. "Maybe now Judd won't turn into that weird single uncle with frozen pizza and old furniture," he said. Everyone gave the polite family laugh. Not loud, not cruel enough for anyone to call it cruel, just enough to remind me where I ranked. I looked toward the garage door. Corwin still had half his basement stored in there for free. Veda smiled like the joke belonged at the table. Blythe took her turn after dinner, while she was helping stack plates. She looked around the living room and said, "Honestly, Veda's been good for you. Without her, you'd still be sitting in that ugly old chair." That ugly old chair. Dad's recliner. The one with the worn armrest where his hand used to rest when he watched baseball. The one he sat in the day he told me, "A man needs one place where he doesn't have to ask permission to breathe." I did not explain that to Blythe. Explaining grief to people who already stepped over it feels like asking them to notice a fire after they warmed their hands over it. I just carried the plates to the sink. After dessert, Mom went out to her car and came back holding a small wooden box. I knew it before she set it down. The Merrick family box. It had no real money value. The hinge was loose, and one corner had a dark stain from a basement leak 20 years back. But inside were old pictures, Dad's handwritten notes, a hardware store receipt from when he helped me fix the porch, and a folded card he had written after I closed on the house. For Judd's first home. Mom brushed her fingers across the lid and smiled at Vita. "You should keep this here," she said. "You have better taste than Judd." For a second, I thought I had heard her wrong. Vita reached for it slowly, like someone being handed a family blessing. "Althea, that's so sweet," she said. I set the dish towel down. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice even, "maybe ask me before deciding what stays here." The room paused. Not a big pause, just that small family silence where everybody waits to see whether the person who usually gives in is about to make them uncomfortable. Mom blinked at me. "Oh, don't be sensitive," she said. "You've always been the flexible one." Corwin gave a little smirk and leaned back in his chair. Blythe looked down at her coffee. Vita did not defend herself. She did not need to. My family had already done the work for her. That was the moment I saw it clearly. Veda had not taken anything by force. She had watched the Merricks long enough to learn the house rules. If Judd objects, call him touchy. If Judd asks for respect, tell him he is making things awkward. If Judd wants a boundary, remind him he has always been easygoing. And if Judd finally says something out loud, act surprised that he has a voice at all. After dinner, they all left with hugs and leftovers. Mom told Veda again that the house looked beautiful. Corwin said he would swing by soon for his garage stuff, which meant nothing. Blythe told me not to overthink everything. When the door closed behind them, the house did not feel peaceful. It felt rearranged. Veda carried the box to the living room shelf beneath the plaque. Judd and Veda, our home. "She just wants the place to look pulled together," Veda said, sliding the box into place. "Your mom gets it." I stood near the hallway and watched her make room for my father's memories under a sign she had bought. I could have argued. I could have said the box was mine. I could have taken it back right then. But I was still trying to be the kind of man nobody could accuse of being difficult. Later, when Veda went to the bedroom, I walked to the empty corner where Dad's recliner used to sit. My hand hovered there like the chair might still be warm if I waited long enough. The garage was full of Corwin's things. The repair bill was paid by me. The plaque had Veda's name beside mine. Now the family box sat where she wanted it. Losing a home does not always start with someone pushing you out the front door. Sometimes it starts with everyone deciding your voice is the smallest thing in the room. I did not know it then, but Veda had been watching my family teach her exactly how little sound I made when something was taken from me. A few days later, in the same kitchen where my mother had called me flexible, Veda said the words that finally made me stop bending. By Thursday evening, the house had settled back into its normal rhythm, or at least the version of normal I had learned to accept. The dishes from Sunday were washed. Mom's casserole dish had been returned. Corwin's boxes were still in my garage. The family box sat on the shelf under that plaque, like it had always belonged there. I was in the kitchen making pasta because Veda had asked me to throw something easy together before she left for the weekend. Nothing fancy. Sauce from a jar, noodles in boiling water, garlic bread warming in the oven. I had Dad's old wooden spoon in my hand, the one with the burn mark near the handle. That was what I did back then. I kept things calm. I fed people. I made myself useful. Veda came down the hallway already dressed to leave. Jeans tucked into boots, a cream sweater, hair done like she had not spent an hour deciding it should look casual. Her weekend bag sat by the front door. A few minutes later, her friends arrived. Kendra Voss came in first, holding her phone up like the whole world was waiting for updates from my kitchen. Maris Knox followed with a bottle of wine and a grin that always seemed half amused, half judging. Tessa Dre came last, quieter than the other two, polite enough to say, "Hey, Judd, smells good." "Thanks," I said. Veda barely looked at the stove. "We're not eating heavy," she told me. "Just enough so nobody's starving on the drive." Nobody's starving. Not, "Thanks for cooking." Not, "Do you need help?" Just an instruction, dressed up like common sense. Kendra panned her phone across the counter, the candles, the little hallway plaque. "Pre-weekend vibes," she said. "Veda, your place looks so cute." Veda laughed. "I try." "Your place." I stirred the sauce and said nothing. Then Veda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, smiled, and said to the room, "Yes, I'm coming." "No, he's not coming. Don't be ridiculous." I had not asked to go. I did not even know where they were going until that moment told me there was a plan everyone else understood better than I did. So I asked a plain question. "Which lake are you all heading to?" That was it. No edge in my voice, no accusation, just the kind of thing you ask when someone who sleeps in your house is leaving for a few days. Veda turned toward Kendra's phone like I had delivered a punchline. "Can you believe him?" Kendra laughed because Kendra always knew when to laugh if a camera was rolling. Maris took a sip of wine and said, "Somebody forgot he's just the homeowner." The words landed before I had time to prepare for them. Tessa gave one small laugh, then looked down at her glass. I noticed that. Not because it saved me, it did not, but because later I would remember who laughed with their whole face and who only laughed because the room told them to. Veda stepped closer to the counter. "You like playing house, Judd," she said, smiling like she was teaching me something. "That doesn't make you my husband." I felt the spoon stop moving in my hand. Then she said it. "Stop acting like we're married. You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with." The kitchen went bright and quiet in my mind, even though they were laughing. I saw Kendra's phone, Maris's smirk, Tessa's uncertain eyes, Veda's weekend bag by the door, the plaque in the hallway with both our names on it, Judd and Veda, our home. Sauce slipped from Dad's wooden spoon and hit the tile near my shoe. A small sound. Nobody heard it. They were too busy enjoying the moment. That was the part that changed me. It was not only what Veda said, it was the way she chose an audience for it. She did not pull me aside. She did not say, "Hey, I need more space." She made my embarrassment part of the evening. And standing there, I heard everyone else inside that sentence. Mom saying, "You've always been the flexible one." Corwin laughing. "It's not like you have a family filling the place." Blythe calling Dad's chair ugly. Maris calling me just the homeowner. Different voices, same message. Judd does not get a say. For 1 second, I almost answered the way a man answers when he still believes the room will be fair. I could have said the mortgage had my name on it. I could have pointed at the plaque. I could have asked why she wanted the comfort of my home, but not the respect that came with living in it. But Kendra's phone was still in her hand. If I raised my voice, I already knew how the story would be told. Judd got jealous. Judd got controlling. Judd ruined the trip. Judd made everybody uncomfortable. So I did something Veda did not understand. I smiled. Not because it was funny, not because I agreed in the way she thought I did. I looked at her and said, "You're right, my mistake." Veda's smile widened, satisfied. Maris lifted her glass like the matter had been settled. Kendra lowered her phone just enough to check the clip. Tessa glanced at me once, then away. They left 10 minutes later in a breeze of perfume, rolling bags, and laughter that kept echoing after the door closed. I did not follow them outside. I did not text Veda. I did not ask another question. I turned off the burner first. Then I bent down and wiped the sauce from the floor. I washed Dad's wooden spoon slowly, running my thumb over the burn mark until the water went clear. It was easier to clean sauce off wood than to clean shame out of a room. When I set the spoon back in the jar, the house felt still. Not peaceful, still. I stood in the hallway and looked at that plaque again. Judd and Veda, our home. For months I had let the word our cover too much. Our home when she wanted beauty. Our home when she wanted comfort. Our home when Kendra filmed it. My house when the heater broke. My problem when a bill arrived. My silence when she needed a joke. Veda had finally said the part out loud. We were not married. I did not get a say. And for once, instead of arguing with her definition, I decided to believe it. That night, I walked next door with a slice of lemon cake and asked Mrs. Bellamy the question I had been afraid to ask for most of my life. Am I wrong for wanting a say in my own home? I carried the lemon cake on a paper plate because I did not know what else to do with my hands. Mrs. Mavis Bellamy lived next door, in the blue Cape Cod with the white porch swing and the wind chimes that rang even when the air barely moved. She was 81, widowed, and sharp in the way older women get when life has already taken enough from them that they stop being impressed by excuses. She opened the door before I knocked twice. Judd, she said, looking past my shoulder toward my house. That kitchen got awfully loud for a Thursday night. I tried to smile. It did not land. I brought cake. That is what people bring when they are not ready to say what happened. She let me sit on the porch swing. I told her everything as plainly as I could. Veda's friends, Kendra's phone, Mara saying I was just the homeowner, Veda telling me not to act like we were married, that I did not get a say in where she went or who she was with. When I finished, I added the part that embarrassed me most. Maybe I made it sound wrong. Maybe asking where she was going came off controlling. Mrs. Bellamy set the plate on the little wicker table between us. Judd, she said, do not let a woman with weekend luggage and no name on the deed convince you that you are a guest. I looked down at my hands. She did not soften it. Your father helped you brace those porch steps because he was proud you bought that place. He did not do all that so everybody else could vote you out with a smile. That one hit deeper than I expected. Not loud, just deep. Dad had trusted that house before I did. Mrs. Bellamy leaned back, watching the porch light flicker over the railing. Now listen to me. Don't do it angry. Do it clean. What does that mean? It means you check facts before you touch anything. Who owns the house? Who pays the bills? Does she have a lease? Is her property protected if you change anything? You are not a boy slamming doors. You are a grown man protecting his home. I walked back across the yard a little steadier than I had left it. The next morning, I sat at the same kitchen table where the laughter had started and made a folder. Deed, mortgage statement, utility bills, homeowner's insurance, repairs I had paid for. The heater invoice still made my jaw tighten, but I slid it in with the rest. By late morning, I called Tamsin Rowe, a local attorney whose name Mrs. Bellamy had written on the back of a grocery receipt. Tamsin did not waste words. Is Miss Sloan on the deed? No. Mortgage? No. Written lease? No. Rent payments? No. Utilities in her name? No. Official mailing address? Mostly packages here. Her bank mail still goes to her sister's place in Reading. Then do not improvise, Tamsin said. Document everything. Preserve her belongings. No angry texts. No public argument. If you change access, you need a clean record of why and what happened to her property. While she spoke, I opened a folder on my phone and found the screenshot I had taken weeks earlier. Veda had left her tablet open on the counter after asking me to fix the Wi-Fi. A message had flashed across the screen before I could look away. It's not even my house. I just stay there because it's easy. At the time, I had told myself not to overreact. Now I read it again, and the room got very still. When I told Tamsin, she was quiet for a moment. Mr. Merrick, she said, if she wants to be non-married when respect is required, make sure she stays non-married when property is discussed. I wrote that down, not because it was clever, because it was accurate. After the call, I made a list. inventory video, storage unit, written notice, access code, no damage, no insults, no chasing her, no begging her to understand. At the bottom, I wrote 4 words: no say, no stay. Then I laid everything on the kitchen table: the deed, the bills, the screenshot, my notes, the proof that the house was not a feeling someone could vote on. The room still remembered their laughter. But paper has a quiet way of telling the truth. I was not healed. I was not ready. But I understood something I should have understood the day I got the key. I was not a guest in my own life unless I kept acting like one. Tamsin told me to make an inventory before I touched a single thing Veda owned, but she never warned me that the hardest items to pack would be the memories that still look like love. By Saturday morning, the house had the kind of quiet that makes every small sound feel guilty. Veda was still away. No perfume in the hallway, no music from the bathroom, no voice calling from the bedroom asking where I had put something she had moved 3 weeks earlier. I set my phone on a tripod in the living room and pressed record. Saturday, 8:43 a.m., I said, hearing how flat my own voice sounded. Inventory of Veda Sloan's personal belongings. Items will be packed, labeled, and stored safely. That was what Tamsin had told me to do. Document everything. Damage nothing. Do not act angry. So I started with the easy things: clothes, shoes, bathroom items, makeup, framed prints, throw blankets, decorative bowls, seasonal decor. I wrote plain labels with a black marker. No jokes, no insults, no little revenge notes. I was not trying to punish her. I was trying to stop letting her live in my house as if respect was optional. The first thing that hurt was the plaque, Judd and Veda, our home. It came off the wall with a small scrape from the nail. I held it in both hands, remembering the day she bought it at a little shop outside Mannheim. "This makes us look more complete," she had said. Back then, I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe our meant shared life, shared care, shared responsibility. Now it felt like a sign for a play I had not known I was acting in. I wrapped it in newspaper and put it in a box marked decor. After that, I moved through the house slowly. Her hair products filled the bathroom shelf. Her candles were in the hallway cabinet. Her folded sweaters took up more dresser space than mine. Her baskets sat under tables I never used. None of it looked like an invasion by itself. That was how it worked. One drawer at a time, one shelf at a time, one small silence from me at a time. In the bedroom, under a stack of scarves, I found a card. The envelope had my name on it. Inside, in Veda's neat handwriting, were 9 words that made me sit down on the edge of the bed. "You make every place feel safe." For a minute, the room shifted backward. I remembered the first few weeks after she moved in, when she still thanked me for coffee, still leaned against my shoulder during old movies, still looked around the kitchen like she was grateful to be there. That was the hardest part about people who hurt you. They are not cruel every hour of every day. If they were, leaving would be easy. I picked up my phone and opened a text. "Can we talk when you get back?" My thumb hovered over send. I imagined her walking in Sunday night, tired from the trip, saying she was sorry. I imagined myself nodding too quickly, relieved to put the house back together. I imagined Mom saying, "See, honey, you just needed to calm down." Then I remembered Kendra's phone, Maris's smile, Tessa looking away, Veda saying, "You don't get a say in where I go or who I'm with." She had not slipped in private. She had made me small in front of an audience. I deleted the message. Then I found a smaller box and placed the card inside. On the lid I wrote, "Things I believe before Friday." I did not write it to mock her. I wrote it because those memories needed somewhere to go besides back into my chest. In the kitchen, Dad's wooden spoon sat clean in the jar. I touched the burn mark with my thumb and heard his voice again. "Good tools just need to keep showing up." But showing up did not mean letting people use you until nothing was left. I went to the garage for more packing tape and saw Dad's recliner wedged behind Corwin's boxes and two of Veda's old lamps. It was dusty, worn, and too heavy to move gracefully. I pulled anyway. A box scraped my shin. Dust got in my throat. The chair caught on a plastic bin, and for one tired second, I almost left it there. Then I pulled harder. By the time I dragged it into the living room, my shirt clung to my back and my hands ached. I set it in the corner where it had always belonged. The room looked less stylish immediately. It also looked more honest. By late afternoon, Veda's boxes were stacked near the hallway. The inventory video was saved. The labels were clear. Nothing was broken. Nothing was hidden. I stood between those boxes and Dad's chair, feeling no victory at all, just the cost. I thought packing Veda's clothes would be the hardest part, but it turned out the hardest thing to move was the version of myself that still wanted to open the door before she ever knocked. I was dragging Dad's recliner across the living room when my phone rang and Corwin's name lit up the screen like one more box I had forgotten to unpack. Corwin's name on my screen made me stop, with both hands still on Dad's recliner. For a second, I thought about letting it ring. I had boxes stacked in the hallway, dust on my shirt, and a house that looked like it had been split open. But answering my family was a habit I had worn into myself so deeply, it felt automatic. I tapped the screen. "Hey," I said. "You home later?" Corwin asked. No greeting, no concern. "I might swing by and grab a couple things from the garage." I looked toward the garage door. His couple things had been sitting there for months, taking up more space than my own car. "I'm busy today." "Doing what?" "Cleaning up." He gave a short laugh. "Well, don't throw out anything of mine. Some of that stuff's important." I almost asked why important things had been left in my garage, like forgotten trash. Instead, I stayed quiet. Then Corwin said, "And don't start acting weird about Veda's lake weekend. Mom said she needed a little room to breathe. Honestly, good for her." The recliner creaked under my hand. "You knew about the trip?" There was a pause, but not the kind that meant guilt. More like he was annoyed he had to explain something obvious. "Mom mentioned it Thursday. Veda told her you were getting clingy again. Look, little brother, don't make one of your moods everybody else's problem." I stared at the boxes beside me. Thursday. The same day Veda had laughed in my kitchen, my family already knew she was leaving for the weekend. They knew before I had even been told clearly where she was going. They had discussed my life around me, then acted surprised when I wanted one plain answer. "That's interesting," I said. Corwin sighed. "Don't blow this up. You finally have a serious woman around. Try not to scare her off by overthinking everything." I did not argue. I just said, "I have to go." After I hung up, the room seemed smaller. The recliner was halfway in place. Veda's boxes were by the wall, and my brother's voice still sat in the air like dust that would not settle. If I spoke up, I was dramatic. If I stayed quiet, everyone else got to keep deciding what I should tolerate. I stepped outside for air. Mrs. Bellamy was on her porch, trimming dead blooms from a potted geranium. She looked over once and set the scissors down. "Another piece fall into place?" she asked. I walked across the yard and told her what Corwin had said. She listened without interrupting, but her face changed near the end. "There's something else," she said. I waited. 2 weeks ago, when you were over at your mother's helping with that water heater, a black SUV pulled into your driveway. I felt my fingers close around the porch rail. "Veda?" She came out, looked up and down the street, then she hugged a man I didn't recognize. He was maybe late 30s, dark jacket. They talked by the back of the vehicle for a few minutes. "Are you saying—" "No," she said gently. "I am not saying what I do not know. I only know she looked around before she hugged him. That is the part I remembered." That was worse somehow. Not proof, not certainty, just another locked room inside my own life. I thanked her and went back inside because if I stood there any longer, I might ask questions no neighbor could answer. The only thing I could control was the list, so I kept packing. In a canvas tote near the hallway, under a pair of sandals and a travel-sized bottle of sunscreen, I found a folded reservation printout. Lake Wallenpaupack, cabin, 4 adults, 1 additional guest, boat rental contact, Rhett Calder. I read it twice. I did not know Rhett Calder. I did not know if he was the man from the SUV. I did not even know if there was anything more to know. But I knew this much. Veda had mocked me for asking which lake. She had made me look ridiculous for asking where she was going. And all the while, there were names, cabins, and plans she had chosen not to share. I placed the receipt on the kitchen table beside Tamsin's folder. Deed, mortgage statement, screenshot, inventory notes. Now this. My phone lit up with Veda's public post from the lake. Finally breathing again. No rules, no questions. I did not reply. By early evening, the house was quiet, except for the refrigerator humming and the paper edges shifting under the ceiling fan. I sat at the table and looked at everything laid out in front of me. If I continued, my mother would call me harsh. Corwin would call me jealous. Blythe would tell me I should have handled it privately. Veda would say I was punishing her because I got my feelings hurt. If I stopped, I would hand her the key back to a house where she could laugh at me, hide things from me, and still come home as if access was owed. That was when I understood what silence had cost me. It had not kept peace. It had only made me available. I opened my notebook and wrote the next steps slowly. Locksmith, storage, notice, access code, Wi-Fi reset. Then I underlined the phrase at the bottom of the page. No say, no stay. I looked at the front door and finally understood that leaving it exactly as it was would not be kindness. It would be surrender with a welcome mat. The next morning at 8:12, I called the locksmith and said the words Veda never believed I had in me. I need the front door changed today. After I hung up with the locksmith, my hand stayed around the phone longer than it needed to. The call had taken less than a minute. One sentence, one appointment, one man with a van coming to my house before noon. Still, my body acted like I had stepped off a ledge. I sat at the kitchen table and opened Tamsin's list again. Inventory video saved, boxes labeled, no damage, storage arranged, notice prepared, no angry messages, no public argument. That list became my railing. At 10:18, the locksmith pulled into the driveway in a white van with faded lettering on the side. He was a man about my age, polite, quiet, carrying a tool bag that looked older than both of us. Front door only? He asked. Front and back, I said. Garage code 2 if you can reset it. He nodded like people change locks every day, because for him, they probably did. For me, each screw he removed sounded like something final being loosened from my old life. He held up the old deadbolt and asked, "You need extra copies?" No, I said. I did not throw the old key away. I put it in an envelope and slid it into the kitchen drawer. I was not trying to make a scene, even alone. I was ending access, not performing anger. After he left, I changed the garage code, then the streaming passwords, then the thermostat app. Last, I opened the Wi-Fi settings and stared at the little blinking cursor. For a minute, I almost typed something ordinary. Then I typed, no, say no, stay. It was not a joke. It was the cleanest summary of what Veda had handed me. She said I did not get a say. Fine. Then she did not get to keep the stay. By early afternoon, I drove Veda's boxes to Maple Road Storage. The unit was small, dry, and clean. Nolan Pike, the manager, slid the paperwork across the counter and looked at my tired face. Moving out? He asked. No, I said. Moving something out. He did not ask anything else. I paid for 60 days, confirmed the access code, and took pictures of the unit after stacking every box inside. Clothes, bathroom, decor, personal items, the plaque wrapped in newspaper. The small box I had labeled for memories stayed separate in my car. I was not ready to decide what to do with that yet. Before I left the parking lot, I drafted Veda a message with the unit number, the address, the gate code, and the paid-through date. I did not mention Rhett Calder. I did not mention the cabin receipt. I did not call her a liar. I saved the message instead of sending it. If she read it too soon, she might not come to the door. And part of me needed her to meet the exact boundary she had created. On the drive back, my phone lit up with another public post from Lake Wallenpaupack. Finally breathing again. No rules, no questions. Under it, Kendra had commented, "Weekend freedom looks good on you." Then Tessa wrote, "Hope everything's okay when you get back." Veda replied, "Judd, please. He'll be fine. His whole personality is avoiding conflict." I read that at a red light and set the phone face down on the passenger seat. She was not wrong about who I had been. She was only wrong about who would be waiting. Late in the afternoon, I stopped at Red Barn Animal Rescue. Mrs. Bellamy had mentioned a big dog there that nobody seemed able to keep. I told myself I was only going to look. Then Boone walked out. He was huge, white and tan, with tired eyes and paws like dinner plates. Iris Wynn, the shelter coordinator, scratched behind his ear and said, "He was returned twice. Too big," they said. "Takes up too much space." Boone leaned his weight against my leg like he had already decided. Iris smiled sadly. "He just needs a home where being big isn't treated like a crime." I looked at that dog and something in my chest loosened. "I have space," I said. By evening, Boone was in my living room, sniffing Veda's empty corners and Corwin's absence from the garage doorway. He circled Dad's recliner twice, then climbed onto it like he had paid the mortgage himself. I almost laughed. I let him stay there. At 7:04, I turned on the porch light. Mrs. Bellamy's light glowed next door a few minutes later. The new deadbolt was in place. Veda's belongings were safe. The storage message waited in my phone. Dad's wooden spoon sat clean in the jar. Boone breathed heavily from the recliner. Twice I picked up my phone to warn her. Twice I set it down. The old me would have softened the landing before anyone had to feel the consequence of their own words. But I remembered the kitchen, the laughter, the way Veda had said I did not get a say in front of people who were glad to hear it. At 9:16, headlights turned onto my street. They swept across the living room wall 1 slow second later. Boone lifted his head. I stayed exactly where I was. Veda stepped onto the porch at 9:17 p.m. with weekend dust on her boots, a suitcase in one hand, and the confidence of someone returning to a place she still thought was waiting. I was not hiding behind the curtain. I was sitting in the living room, close enough to hear the porch boards, but far enough from the door to keep myself from doing something old and foolish. Boone lifted his head from Dad's recliner. My phone lit up with the doorbell camera notification. Veda shifted her suitcase, reached into her purse, and pulled out the key. It slid into the new deadbolt. For half a second, her face said, "See? Of course." Then she turned her wrist. Nothing. She tried again, slower this time, then harder. The key still fit, but it would not move the lock. That small detail felt almost too perfect. She had known how to enter my house. She just no longer had permission to belong there. My phone buzzed. Veda calling. I watched the screen until it stopped. Then it buzzed again. The old version of me wanted to answer. He wanted to explain softly, calm her down, make the scene smaller, carry the discomfort for both of us. I could almost hear myself saying, "Let's not do this outside." Instead, I looked toward the kitchen. Dad's wooden spoon sat clean in the jar. Boone gave one low bark, more warning than noise. On the porch, Veda looked down at her phone. She tapped the Wi-Fi list. I knew the exact moment she saw it because her face changed. No, say no, stay. She pounded once on the door. "Judd, open up." I stayed where I was. "This is not funny," she called. Open the door. Mrs. Bellamy's porch light clicked on next door. That old woman stepped out in a gray cardigan, calm as a church bell. She did not rush. She did not shout. She simply stood on her porch like she had been appointed by common sense itself. Veda turned toward her. Mrs. Bellamy, is Judd home? Oh, Judd's home, Mrs. Bellamy said. He's had a very productive weekend. Veda's voice sharpened. He changed the locks while I was away. Yes, Mrs. Bellamy said. He can't do that. Mrs. Bellamy folded her hands over the porch rail. He said you told him not to act married, so he stopped, all the way. For once, Veda did not have a quick answer. Mrs. Bellamy continued, steady and plain. Your belongings are safe at Maple Road Storage, paid for 60 days. He has the unit number and code ready for you. I sent the message then. Address, unit, gate code, paid through date. No insult, no accusation, just facts. Veda looked at her phone, then back at my door. Oh, that is rich, she said. He is punishing me because I needed space. You have no idea what he's really like. And there it was. The lock had ended one problem and opened another. The story. Veda stepped back into the driveway, held up her phone, and began recording. Her voice changed, softer, shaky, practiced. He changed the locks while I was away, she said to the camera. All my things are inside. I have nowhere to go. That was the danger of a half-truth. It could cry faster than the whole story could put on its shoes. She did not mention the storage unit. She did not mention the inventory video. She did not mention the kitchen, the laughter, or the fact that she had told me I did not get a say. Within 20 minutes, her post was up. Control does not always start with shouting. Sometimes it starts with a locked door. Kendra reposted it. Maris commented, Nobody deserves to be treated like this. My phone started filling with calls. Mom first. Judd, what did you do? Her voicemail said. Veda is crying. This is not how a decent man handles things. Corwin texted next. This is why nobody takes you seriously when you try to act like the man of the house. Blythe wrote, You should have talked to her before making it public. I almost fell for it. I almost started typing a long explanation to everyone, trying to prove I was not cruel, not unstable, not the man Veda was building for an audience. Then I remembered Tamsin. Say less than you want to. And Mrs. Bellamy, do it clean. So I did. I sent my family one private folder, Kendra's kitchen clip, Maris saying, just the homeowner, the screenshot where Veda had written, It's not even my house. I just stay there because it's easy. The deed, the mortgage statement, the storage receipt, the inventory video. My message was short. I'm not asking you to take my side. I'm asking you to watch the whole clip before deciding I'm the villain. Then I sent the same material to Tamsin along with Veda's porch video. I did not send the cabin receipt. I did not mention Rhett Calder. I knew better than to let this turn into gossip about jealousy. This was about access, property, respect, and truth. For the public, I posted one picture, the plaque, wrapped in newspaper, lying inside the storage box. Judd and Veda, our home. My caption was simple. She corrected the relationship status. I corrected the access. I did not tag her. I did not call her names. I just refused to let her version stand alone. After that, the noise changed. Mom stopped calling. Corwin did not answer. Blythe sent 3 dots, then nothing. Kendra's repost disappeared before midnight. Maris went quiet. Tessa did not write to me, but I saw that she had saved the kitchen clip before it vanished from Kendra's story. Veda sent one last text. You're twisting everything. I did not respond. Sometime after midnight, her car finally left the curb. The porch light stayed on. Boons settled at my feet. The new deadbolt held without making a sound. The door had stayed closed, but the deeper victory was not the lock. It was that I did not open it just because people got loud. 1 week later, a letter from Veda's attorney arrived in my mailbox, thick enough to look serious and thin enough to prove he had not seen the receipts. 1 week after Veda stood on my porch with a useless key in her hand, Boone and I were walking back from the mailbox when I saw the envelope. Heavy cream paper, neat print, a law office return address in Lancaster. Galen Price, attorney at law. Boone tugged the leash toward the grass, but I stood there a moment longer, holding that envelope like it might bite. A letter from a lawyer used to be exactly the kind of thing that would make me apologize just to make trouble disappear. I took it inside and opened it at the kitchen table. The letter accused me of denying Veda access to her residence, causing emotional distress, withholding personal property, and acting in a punitive, controlling manner. It sounded serious. It also sounded like Galen Price had only heard the porch version. I read it twice. Then very quietly, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because the letter asked the wrong question. It asked why I had denied Veda access. It did not ask whether she had any right to demand access after telling me, in front of witnesses, that I was not to act like we were married and did not get a say. I scanned the letter and sent it to Tamsin. She called 15 minutes later. "Did anything change since your last folder?" she asked. "No." "Belongings still at Maple Road Storage?" "Yes, paid for 60 days, code sent." "Inventory video?" "Saved." "Lease?" "No." "Rent?" "No." "Utilities?" "No." "Deed or mortgage?" "My name only." "And we still have her message saying it is not her house?" "Yes." Tamsin exhaled through her nose, not quite a laugh. "Then Mr. Price is about to receive a very educational reply." Her response was clean. She stated that I was the sole owner, that Veda had no deed interest, no lease, no rent history, no utility obligation, and no written agreement giving her permanent tenancy. Her belongings had been inventoried, packed, stored, photographed, and made available to her at no cost for 60 days. Then came the line that ended the noise. "If Ms. Sloan wishes to assert tenancy benefits, please provide documentation of rent, utilities, or a written agreement. Otherwise, we are prepared to discuss reimbursement for 6 months of unpaid occupancy, household expenses, utilities, and storage costs." After that, Galen Price did not send another sharp letter. Veda's posts slowed, then disappeared. Kendra's stories went quiet. Maris stopped commenting. Funny how loud people can be when someone is crying on a porch, and how quickly they lower their voices when receipts enter the room. Mom texted 2 days later, "I should have asked you first." I looked at that sentence for a long time. The old me would have rushed to comfort her. "It's okay, Mom. Don't worry about it. I'm fine." But I was not fine just because she felt guilty. So I wrote back, "I appreciate you saying that." Nothing more. Corwin texted Saturday morning, "I'll come get my garage stuff." I replied, "Noon to 2. Anything left after that goes to storage at your expense." He showed up on time. Blythe called the next week and said, "I think we treated your house like you were still the kid brother." "That's probably true," I said. She waited for me to make it easier. I did not. A month later, I ran into Tessa at a small dog park outside town. Boone was busy making friends with a beagle who clearly regretted approaching him. Tessa stood by the fence, hands in her coat pockets. "We were out of line," she said. I looked at her for a second, then nodded. I believed what she told me, that's all. She said Kendra should never have filmed it. Maris should not have laughed. I told her I hoped they remembered that the next time someone was being embarrassed in his own kitchen. By spring, the garage was mostly clear. Dad's recliner was back in the living room, though Boone had claimed it like a throne. The house did not look like one of Veda's videos anymore. It looked lived in, a little uneven, a little plain, honest. One night I made chili with Dad's old wooden spoon. Boone slept under the table, breathing like a tired furnace. I remembered the sauce falling on the tile while Veda's friends laughed. The memory still hurt, but it no longer owned the room. I had not become colder. I had simply stopped serving warmth to people who treated it like something they were owed. A locked door can look cruel when people ignore everything that happened before it. But sometimes a locked door is not revenge. Sometimes it is the first boundary a person has ever kept after a lifetime of being called easy. I kept the old spoon. I kept the house. I kept the part of me that still knew how to care. I just stopped handing it to people who treated my kindness like a key they never had to return.